Hello friends, we have been attempting to understand the failure of a material at high temperature. So the categories of material or the category of material that we are restricted to or we are largely considering is polycrystalline material. So this is the category of material we are focusing on. The reason we are considering the polycrystalline material because it is largely used in the high temperature application, and only in the polycrystalline material we have intergranular failure. So we are considering the high temperature failure of polycrystalline material, and we are specifically focusing on the intergranular failure of the material. So if you could recollect, this intergranular failure is initiated by or it is eventuated by two precursor or two distinct events. So one of this event is the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries, and the other event is the formation of the wedges along the triple junctions. So these two events, they lead or they form the precursor for the ultimate failure of the material. So once you have cavities or the triple junction wedges, it leads or it transforms to a crack, and this crack ultimately leads to the failure of the material. We have considered several reasons for the formation of the grain boundary cavities. In the previous lectures, we saw the nucleation rate and the growth of this grain boundary cavities, because it is not often one cavity that ultimately leads to the failure of the material. There are several cavities that are involved that which interact with each other, and ultimately the combination of this interaction leads to the failure of the material. So therefore it was important for us to consider, or rather it is important for us to consider the nucleation rate of the cavities and also the growth of the cavity. So the combination of the nucleation rate and also the growth of the cavity, it helps us understand the time taken for the failure of the material. If you want to understand the overall failure of the material, particularly the high temperature failure of the material, it is important for us to get a grasp of the nucleation rate of these precursors and also how these precursors grow. Now, if you consider the expression for the nucleation rate of these cavities, it involved two terms. So one term it deals with the absorption of vacancies. So you could say this term deals with the mobility and the absorption of vacancies, and the other term it deals with number of existing critical cavities. Now the reason we have such an expression for the nucleation rate is because we defined or described the nucleation rate as the transformation or transition from the critical cavity to supercritical cavity. So in this way we defined or we formulated the nucleation rate. When your nucleation rate is described in such a way that it deals with the transformation of a critical cavity to a stable cavity, then this transformation is being rendered by the absorption of vacancies, and therefore you have a term that deals with the mobility and the absorption of vacancy, the rate at which the vacancies are being observed, and the other term that largely deals with the number of critical sites that are present. Let me reiterate. This expression, it stems from our description of the nucleation rate for the supercritical or stable cavity. The way we define the nucleation rate or the nucleation of the supercritical cavity is as the transition of a critical cavity to the stable cavity. This transition occurs by the absorption of vacancy by the cavities, and the rate at which the absorption occurs is the rate at which the transformation occurs, and this transformation is governed by the number of critical cavities that are present. So therefore we have two terms, one governing the rate of the vacancy absorption and the other governing the number of critical sites that are present. Now for a moment let us consider this term here. If you could recollect, the expression for this term involved a constant and an exponential term that deals with the activation energy for the cavity to be stable. Now this term here, let us focus on this term. So this term here is the number of preferable sites for the formation of stay or rather critical cavity. So the number of critical cavities, or the cavities that acts as a precursor for the formation of the supercritical or stable cavity, it's governed by the number of preferable sites for the formation of such cavity. So what this means is that this critical cavity from which we have the nucleation of the supercritical or stable cavity, this stable cavity ultimately leads to the formation of the crack and ultimately to the failure of the material. This all begins with the critical cavity, and this critical cavity is not homogeneously found, but these are found at the preferable sites. And since we are largely confining or talking about the intergranular failure in the polycrystalline system, it means these preferable sites are confined to the grain boundaries, and the cavities are formed in these preferable sites along the grain boundary. So what this means is that there are certain sites or specific points along the grain boundary where it is energetically favorable for the critical cavity to form. So that means there are other sites where it is not energetically favorable. So ultimately the nucleation of the supercritical or stable cavity is heterogeneous in nature. So if you consider this expression what we have here, it helps us understand that this nucleation of the cavities is heterogeneous in nature, and that is the reason why we consider the preferable sites. Had it been homogeneous in nature, it all will depend on amount of grain boundary area that is present. So it will, depending on the amount of grain boundary area, you will have even sites or even distribution of the sites, and in all these sites you will have the formation of the critical cavity, which will ultimately transform to the supercritical cavity. However, we have preferred sites for the formation of the critical cavity, and that means your nucleation of the supercritical cavity or the heterogeneous, or rather the stable cavity that ultimately transforms to the crack, is heterogeneous in nature. So this we can understand from the expression for the nucleation rate of the supercritical cavity, which combines the rate at which the vacancies are observed and the number of critical cavities that are present. Now we saw the transition or the role how the cavities play in the eventual failure of the material is governed by the combination of its nucleation rate and also its growth rate. So these two combine, and the interplay of these two, that is the number of stable cavities that are present and the manner in which it grows, the combination of these two, the rate at which these happen, governs the ultimate failure of the material. So as someone who is using a particular material for an application, we are interested to understand at what rate the material would fail. In that case, if you are talking from that perspective, you need to consider both these aspects, that is the nucleation rate and the growth rate. And therefore, in the previous lecture, we consider the factors governing. So the factors governing the growth of the stable cavities. So we have a transition from critical to supercritical or stable cavity, which we refer to as the nucleation, and the growth of these stable cavities. So there were two factors that we largely focused on. So these factors, it involved the normal stress, and the other factor is the radius of curvature. So the manner in which these critical cavities, or rather the stable cavities, grow is by the absorption of vacancies or by the accumulation of vacancies. So the driving force for the accumulation of vacancy, we refer to it as the gradient in the chemical potential of vacancies. This gradient in the chemical potential of vacancies is governed by the normal stress and the radius of curvature of the cavity. So normal stress, it is acting in the system or in the polycrystalline material, and the radius of curvature, it is associated with the morphology or the shape of the cavity. Now for our simple consideration, we defined a certain definite expression for the gradient of the chemical potential of vacancies introduced by the normal stress, and we defined that as the magnitude of the normal stress into the molar volume or the molecular volume of the vacancies, which is equivalent to the atomic volume of the atoms that it replaces. So this term here, it talks about the atomic volume of the vacancies, and since a vacancy is nothing but a defect that replaces a specific atom, that atomic volume can be considered here. And similarly, the gradient of the vacancies that renders the driving force for the migration. We refer to that as this, wherein the R bar is the radius of curvature of that is dependent on the morphology of the cavity, and this term here is the energy density, interfacial energy density or surface energy density. So it is interfacial energy density per surface or per unit surface. So it is something like this. If you have a cavity, this means you have the formation of new surface here, and the energy density of this surface is being given by this constant here. Now the combination of these two driving forces, you have a driving force that brings about the mobility of the vacancies that is caused by the normal stress, and a driving force that is brought about by the radius of curvature. Now we saw in the previous lecture that it is the combination of these two that ultimately governs the mobility of the vacancies. However, while the normal force favors the mobility of vacancies towards the cavity, it means the normal stress helps the cavity grow. The curvature in this case, or in most cases, it leads or it governs or it directs the vacancies away from the cavities. So this leads to the expansion of the vacancies, thereby leading to the shrinking of the size of the cavities. So while you have a normal stress that helps the growth of the cavities through appropriate mobility or appropriate movement of vacancies or appropriate accumulation of vacancies, by the reverse action, the curvature leads to the shrinkage of the cavities. Now if you consider the resultant driving force that is caused by these two, so you have the resultant change in the gradient of the chemical potential of the vacancies, it would be of this form. So again here there should be a term involving the atomic volume of the vacancies. So if you take that atomic volume term out, so in this manner, by the combination of these two terms, we have the resultant driving force that governs the mobility of the vacancies. So the combination of these two terms ultimately governs the mobility of the vacancies, or the manner in which the vacancies, or the driving force which governs the mobility of the vacancies. Now the other term that governs the growth rate is the diffusivity of the vacancies along the grain boundary. So this is quite straightforward to understand, that the greater the rate of diffusivity, or greater the diffusion coefficient for the vacancies along the grain boundary, the larger will be the growth of the cavities, because ultimately the cavities grow by the accumulation of vacancies. So when the accumulation rate is greater due to the increased diffusion coefficient, then the growth of the cavities will be even faster. So this is a term that is quite straightforward for us to understand, or the influence of this term is quite straightforward for us to understand. And the other term that contributes to the growth rate of the vacancies is the combination of the normal stress and the curvature of, or the radius of curvature of the cavities. Now these two terms govern the flux of the vacancies. So you would have a conventional minus here, but let us for the sake of this argument, let us ignore it and use the term, a proportionality term here. So what this means is that this normal stress, it favors the growth of the cavity by appropriate movement of the vacancies, but the radius of curvature, in most cases, it introduces a movement for the vacancies in such a way that it moves away from the cavities, thereby leading to the shrinkage of the cavities. Now the rate at which the cavities operate, or the rate at which the cavities expand or grow or shrink, it depends on the flux of the vacancies. So like we have considered, or like we have defined the nucleation rate, similar description can be given to the growth of the cavities. That is, the cavities grow when you have sufficient accumulation of vacancies. and even the nucleation can be termed as a instantaneous growth or instantaneous transition from the critical to supercritical cavity. So therefore, the overall growth rate or overall growth of the cavity follows the similar principle. Only thing that is different is, like we have seen in the previous lecture, the amount of vacancies that are being absorbed. So in case of the nucleation, you have a very small amount of vacancies that are relatively small amount of vacancies that are being absorbed to create a transition between critical and supercritical cavities. However, for a growth of this cavity, you need significant amount of absorption of vacancies, and this significant amount of absorption of vacancies is governed by the flux of the vacancies. So therefore, the growth rate of the cavities is proportional to the flux, and this flux in turn is proportional to the diffusion or diffusivity of the vacancies along the grain boundaries, and this interaction between the normal stress and the radius of curvature. So it is important to note that the growth rate of the cavity is directly proportional to the normal stress that creates a gradient in the vacancies. So the normal stress, if you could recollect, it creates a gradient in the concentration of vacancies. This brings about a gradient in the chemical potential that ultimately drives the vacancies towards the cavity. So this is how the normal stress influences the growth rate of cavities. However, the opposite influence is being rendered by the radius of curvature, and that means it is not inversely related to that of the growth rate of the cavity. However, the influence of the radius of curvature is rendered by reducing the effect of the normal stress. So there are two ways the curvature can hinder the growth of the cavity, numerically speaking. So one way is to have an inversely proportional relation. However, instead of doing that, the way the radius of curvature influences the growth rate of cavity is by reducing the driving force that allows the vacancies to move towards the cavity. So by reducing the driving force, it decreases the rate of growth of cavity. So we have three principal terms that govern the growth of cavity. So the one is the diffusivity of vacancies along the grain boundary, the other is the normal stress, which introduces the gradient in the chemical potential, and other is the radius of curvature of the cavity. This cavity reduces the driving force that is brought about by the normal stress. Now it is important to note that this normal stress allows for the vacancies to move in this direction. So you have your grain boundary, and this normal stress, it creates a gradient along the grain boundary in such a way that the vacancies move towards the cavity, and this is how the normal stress influences the growth rate. Now what we have is factors governing the growth rate, or rather the factors governing the flux of the vacancies. And similarly, since the growth rate is dependent on flux, we have ultimately understood how these factors govern the growth rate of the cavities. This is dA by dt. So what we have essentially done, so A is the size of the cavity at a given time, and we have now understood what are the factors that govern the growth rate of the cavities. Now we want to see, ultimately our goal is to understand the time taken for the failure of the material. So this is what our ultimate goal is. We are not rather in or on the, from the application point of view, the an engineer who uses the polycrystalline material for his high temperature application is very rarely interested in understanding the growth rate of the vacancies or growth rate of the cavities or the flux of the vacancies. He is more interested in understanding the time taken for the failure of the material. So the time taken for the failure of the material is nothing but the inverse of the rate at which the cavities grow. Meaning, when you have the cavities growing at a very large speed, the time taken for the failure will be quite small. So therefore, the factors governing the time taken for the failure will also have a similar relationship. So let me repeat, we are, as an engineers, when you consider from the application point of view, we are interested in the ultimate failure of the material at high temperature. So this ultimate failure of the material at high temperature has an inverse relation to the growth rate of the individual cavities or the cavities as a whole. So the growth rate of the individual cavities, now we have an understanding how several different factors govern the growth rate of the cavities. Now, since the growth rate of the cavities has an inverse relation to the time taken for the failure or the time taken for the rupture of the material, then based on our understanding of factors influencing the growth rate, we can understand, or we can derive at an expression, or we can rather get an idea of how each of these factors influence the time taken for the failure. So it means the time taken for the failure, like the growth rate of the cavities, is inversely governed by these factors. These two factors, they inversely, or they are inversely related to the time taken for the failure of the material. If you have a larger diffusivity of vacancies, or the diffusivity of the vacancies is quite large along the grain boundary, then the time taken for the failure will be sufficiently reduced. And similarly, the normal stress that drive the vacancies towards the cavity when it is large, that means you have a larger gradient in the vacancies and the driving force is large for the vacancies to get accumulated along the cavities, then the time taken for the failure is sufficiently reduced. However, when your curvature or the shape of your cavity is in such a way that the vacancies are allowed to move away from it. So the curvature of your cavity is in such a way that it does not favor the accumulation of vacancies, then the time taken for the failure to occur, or the time taken for the rupture, would be sufficiently increased. So even though these two terms here, as they increase, they ultimately reduce the time taken for the failure. This term here, as it becomes more pronounced, so we should note that we are talking about the influence of this term, and this is already in denominator, so it is possible for it to go into the numerator. So it means when the influence of curvature becomes more pronounced, that is when the curvature allows for the vacancies to move away from the cavities, then it means that the time taken for the failure is rather prolonged. So what we have essentially done is, we have postulated, or we have formulated an expression for the driving force for the accumulation of vacancies, and the factors that are involved in this are the diffusivity of along the grain boundary, the normal stress, and the radius of curvature. And based on that, we were able to form or express the flex of the vacancies that will ultimately leads to the growth of the cavities. And once we have an based on this flex expression, or the expression for the flex, we related it to the growth rate of the cavities. And once we have an expression or factors governing the growth rate of cavities, the growth rate of cavities is inversely proportional to the time taken for the failure. So based on this understanding, we were now able to relate or understand how each of these factors influence rather the time taken for the failure of the material. So when you have a greater amount of diffusivity along the grain boundaries and the normal stress that introduces a sufficient driving force for the mobility of vacancies towards the cavity, the rupture time will sufficiently decrease. However, when the shape of the cavity is in such a way that it allows for the sufficient diffusion of vacancies from the cavity to the surrounding region, then the time taken for the failure is prolonged. So this all stems from the inverse relation between the growth rate of the vacancies and the time taken for the failure. Now, it is important for us to understand the reason we have been so far considering just the parameter instead of an exact expression. So far what we have done is, we have not considered an exact expression for the flux, we have not considered an exact expression for the growth rate of cavities, we have not considered an exact expression for the time taken for the failure. All we have done is, we have considered some specific parameters that govern each of these events, and we have seen how these specific parameters influence these events. The reason is because this particular aspect is an evolving one, or this particular aspect of the creep is an evolving one. So we have a fundamental theory, and now the researchers are building on it. So we don't as of now have a definite theory or a definite expression. We have several theories and several expressions, but all these theories, they stem from this foundation. So whatever we have considered, be it how we distinguish a critical cavity from a subcritical or supercritical cavity, be it that description, the thermodynamic description, or be it how these individual factors influence the growth rate of the cavities, the nucleation rate of these cavities. All these are the foundation on which numerous theories are being built. So depending on which theory you consider, you would have a different set of definite expressions, and that is the reason why instead of going into specific theories, we have considered just the foundation that allows us to build different theories. So that is the reason why we have not considered any specific expressions, but we have largely focused on the parameters that largely influence the growth of the cavity, the time taken for the failure, the nucleation rate of the cavities, and how these parameters influence each of these events. Now, so far what we have done is we have largely considered the growth of the cavities. So what we mean by that is, if we have, say, a cavity in this manner, so what we have done is we have considered the growth of the cavity. So we have what essentially happens when you have a growth of the cavity is it increases in this, the dimension or the shape of this cavity increases in this manner. So for this to happen, we consider that we need the accumulation of vacancies. So the vacancies, so they travel along this grain boundary, which is being darkened. So I'm highlighting it here. These are the grain boundaries, and along these grain boundaries you have the movement of vacancies, and this migration of vacancies, they ultimately lead to the growth of the cavity. Now, if you consider the cavity, it has, like we considered earlier, it has the formation of new surface here. So once a cavity begins to form and it begins to grow, you have an increase in the surface that are being formed. So you are introducing a new surface into the system while the cavities begin to grow. Now once you have a considerable amount of surface, for the growth of the vacancies, you need the vacancy to move along in this direction as well. So you need to have vacancies moving in this direction as well. So let me distinguish it with a different color. So you need to have vacancies moving along the surface as well. So what I mean by is, so in the initial stages, when there were not much surface to deal with, the growth of the cavities were largely governed by the diffusion of vacancies along the grain boundaries. So you have your grain boundaries, and the diffusion of vacancies along the grain boundaries, it dealt with the growth of the cavities. However, once the cavities begin to grow, or once the cavity continues to grow, you have a significant increase in the surface area of the cavities. So to continue the growth of the cavity, you need to have the vacancies propagating or migrating along this surface as well. So what you now have, in addition to the grain boundary migration or the grain boundary diffusion, you now have surface diffusion. So as the cavity begins to grow, in addition to the grain boundary diffusion of vacancies, we need to also consider the surface diffusion of vacancies. So it is possible that at some instant or in some region along the grain boundary, the growth of the cavities is governed largely by the surface diffusion instead of the grain boundary diffusion. It is possible after some time, after a definite size of the cavities, it is possible that the growth of the cavity is not governed by grain boundary diffusion alone, but a combination of surface and the grain boundary diffusion, and the rate governing diffusion in some cases would be the surface diffusion. If that happens, in such a case, the growth rate is proportional to the normal stress, and it is related in the form of the power law, wherein the exponent term is equal to 3. or the power term is equal to 3. So what we mean by that is, once you have a shift in the path, once you have the governing path that is being different from that of the grain boundary or grain boundary diffusion, now you have the growth of the cavities being governed by the surface diffusion of the vacancies. This shift in the factors governing the growth of the cavities can be observed in the rate at which the cavities grow. When the rate at which the cavities grow for a given normal stress is more pronounced, or it is considerably higher after a certain point, it means that the growth rate is governed by surface diffusion. So the relation between the normal stress and the growth rate depends on the path that is taken by the vacancies. When the path that is taken by the vacancies is along the surface of the cavity, the influence of the normal stress is more pronounced when it is along the grain boundary. So this is a surface diffusion governed growth of the cavity. So what we have is, we have the diffusion of vacancies along the surface becoming or governing the overall growth of the cavity, and this is what we refer to as the surface diffusion governed growth of the cavity. And when you plot the influence of this growth rate with respect to the normal stress, this relation is significantly different when we have a surface diffusion governed growth of the cavity. Now the reason again we are considering the surface diffusion is because it is quite different from that of the grain boundary diffusion, and depending on the morphology of the, or depending on the amount of surface that is present, and depending on the location of the cavity, it is possible that the surface diffusion might play a dominant role when compared to the grain boundary diffusion. Now it is possible, or there might be instances wherein, like we have considered the usual case wherein the grain boundary diffusion is greater than that of the surface diffusion, and also other instances like here wherein the surface diffusion is greater than that of the, or the influence of the surface diffusion of vacancies is greater than that of the grain boundary diffusion. Pardon me, both these mean the same. So yeah, the influence of the surface diffusion is rather restricted when compared to the influence of the grain boundary diffusion, or in this case the influence of the surface diffusion is significantly higher or relatively higher than that of the grain boundary diffusion. This disparity in the difference or the influence of the grain boundary diffusion and the surface diffusion can be understood by considering the morphology of the cavities. Supposing you have a cavity that is growing in such a way that it is quite far away from the circular shape. So it is growing in a lenticular shape. It means that the surface diffusivity or the surface diffusion of vacancies is less pronounced than the grain boundary diffusion. When you have this condition, the morphology of the cavity when it grows, so this is how the cavities are growing, and the morphology of the cavities when it grows, it is far away from the circular shape, and this will help us understand which mode of diffusion is dominant. When the grain boundary diffusion is dominant, you have such a shape because the accumulation of vacancies is more pronounced in this region, and therefore the growth is like in this manner, the morphology in which the cavities grow in this manner. So because we have the accumulation of vacancies here, and the distribution of this accumulated vacancies should be because of the surface diffusion, and this is, since it is slow when compared to the grain boundary diffusion, we have such a shape, the shape that is far away from the circular shape. Now when you have an instance wherein this role of surface diffusion is considerably greater than, or the effect of surface diffusion is considerably greater than that of the grain boundary diffusion, then even though the initial cavity might be lenticular in nature, as it grows, it will be close to the circular shape. So this is because once the vacancy gets accumulated here, the surface diffusivity is sufficient enough for it to move across the surface of the cavities, and ultimately the shape becomes close to circular. So what we essentially have is based on the morphology of the cavities. When you observe it experimentally, you will be able to say which diffusivity is dominant. When you have surface diffusivity dominant, the cavities will grow in such a manner that it is close to a circular shape. This happens because the accumulated vacancies are easily being distributed all over the surface. On the other hand, when the influence of the surface diffusivity, if it is restricted, then what would happen is the accumulated stress will cause the cavities to grow along the specific direction, along the grain boundaries alone or largely, and that means you have a significant deviation from the circular shape. You will have a lenticular expansion of the cavities. So based on this observation, you will be able to, by observing the cavities below, you will be able to see which form of diffusion is more dominant during the growth of this particular cavity. Now, so far what we have considered is the growth of cavities by the accumulation of vacancies. So all these preceding discussions were focused on growth of cavities by accumulation of vacancies. So, however, this is not the only operational mechanism through which the vacancies grow. There is also another mechanism, a rather a simpler one to understand, which also will allow the cavities to grow, and this does not largely involve any role of vacancies. So this is referred to as the grain boundary sliding growth. Grain boundary sliding growth of cavities. Now this growth of cavities, as the name suggests, is achieved by the sliding of the grain boundaries. So if you could we consider how a cavities is formed along the grain boundaries. Now the formation of cavities, or the formation of stable cavities, or the nucleation of the stable cavity, this principle of it would remain the same. Now we are focusing on the growth of the cavities. So once you have the stable cavities and the grain boundary begins to slide, then the cavities along with the grain boundary will also slide and increase in its dimension, and this is a grain boundary sliding assisted growth of the cavities. So this mode of the growth of cavities is not largely influenced by the diffusion of vacancies, but it is influenced by the sliding of the grain boundary. The mechanism that governs this mode of growth is different from the mechanism that we consider so far, wherein the vacancy played a larger role. The diffusion of the vacancy, the diffusivity of the vacancy, it played the critical role. However, in this mode of the growth of cavities, it is the sliding of the grain boundaries that leads to the growth of this cavity. Now, here, depending on the influence or the effect of the different diffusivities, we have a difference in the morphology of the cavities. So this is what we saw earlier, that depending on which diffusion is dominant, the morphology of the cavities in vacancy assisted growth of cavities vary. So when you have a growth which is governed by the vacancies, the morphology of the cavity is governed by which diffusion path is dominant. If the surface diffusion path is dominant, you would have close to circular cavities. If the grain boundary diffusion path is dominant, you would have a lenticular shape of cavities. So in case of the grain boundary sliding assisted growth of cavity, you don't have that liberty, but you have a shape of, or the cavities that are formed or that grow by this mode of by this mechanism of grain boundary sliding, they adapt largely a similar form of, or they adapt largely a similar morphology. The cavities that grow with the help of this grain boundary sliding, they largely form a morphology, or they largely adopt a morphology which is of plate-like nature. So you don't have any other options for the morphology of these cavities when they grow with the help or aided by the grain boundary sliding. So in your growth of the cavities is principally governed by grain boundary sliding. The morphology of this cavity can only be like a plate. So it will be far from being circular, it will be far from being the shape that we saw for the grain boundary diffusion governed growth of the cavities. In this case, the likely morphology or the most probable morphology that the cavities would adopt when it is being allowed to grow with the help of grain boundary sliding, it will be in the form of the plates. So depending on the morphology, you will be able to identify which approach or which mechanism is governing the growth of this particular cavity. So when you have a plate like cavity, it is being governed by the grain boundary sliding, and when you have a lenticular shape and a shape that is close to a circular shape, we can say this is governed by the diffusion of vacancies. And even when it is governed by the diffusion of vacancies, depending on the morphology of the cavities, you will be able to distinguish which mode of diffusion is currently governing the growth of the cavities. Before winding this lecture up, I just wanted to introduce you to one other mode of the growth of the cavities. Now, when we consider the growth of the cavities, it is possible for the cavities to grow along two directions. So this is what we talked about when we consider, or we mean when we consider the morphology of the cavities. So we have two directions in which a cavity can grow. So cavity is present along the grain boundary. So it can grow along the grain boundary in this direction. So when this the growth along the grain boundary is pronounced, you have a morphology that is quite away from that of the circular shape. Now it is also possible for the cavities to move in this direction, that is towards the bulk of the material. So what we have here is the backend region here is the grain boundary, and the region surrounding it, or the region the grain boundary partitions, are the bulk of the region or the actual grains. So you would have your grain 1 here and your grain 2 here, and you have your grain boundary here. Now when you have the growth of, when there is a growth of the cavities along the grain boundary, so it is consuming the grain boundaries. However, when you have the growth of the cavities in this direction, when the growth of the cavities is largely governed by the surface diffusion and the growth, and then that means the growth is towards the individual grains. So all it is doing is it's impinging on the regular crystals, it is impinging on the regular grains, and this begins to influence the overall growth rate of the material. So, or rather the growth rate of the cavities rather. So this, when you have the influence of the grains, instead of grain boundary influencing your growth, instead of vacancy or the diffusion of vacancies along the grain boundaries influencing your growth, when you have the actual grains influencing the growth of the cavities, we refer to it as the constrained growth. So one mode or the growth of the cavities is referred as the constrained growth of the cavities. So this constrained growth is because you have your regular grains influencing the growth of the cavity. So the cavities, the growth of these cavities along this direction is confined, and only when you have sufficient growth along this direction, you will be able to grow in this direction as well. So this is what we refer to as the constrained growth of the cavity. The manner in which the constrained growth of the cavity is achieved is by influencing the normal stress. Now what happens is, when we say there is a diffusion of vacancies in this direction, in order to bring about the growth of the cavities, what we mean by the diffusion of vacancies is nothing but the reverse diffusion of the atoms. So the green, it refers to the diffusion of vacancies, and the orange, it refers to the reverse diffusion of atoms. So what ultimately happens is, when we say the vacancy or the accumulation of vacancies leads to the growth of the cavities, we have the reverse movement of atoms along the grain boundaries. So what happens is, you would have a thickening of the grain boundaries here. So you would have a thickening of grain boundaries, because as the vacancies move towards the cavities, you have the atoms moving away from the cavities along the grain boundaries, and to have sufficient path for the atoms to move, you would have the thickening of grain boundaries. So that means your grain 1 and grain 2 are getting increasingly separated. Additionally, all these atoms, they stems from the regular grains that are present. So as the cavities grow, because of the accumulation of vacancies, you have the atoms from the regular grains that are being removed. And if you could recollect, it is the gradient that is introduced by the normal stress that governs this diffusion of vacancies, or you can say it is the gradient that is introduced by the normal stress that governs the reverse diffusion of atoms away from the vacancies. So whenever you have sufficient normal stress acting along or acting on the cavities, you have sufficient driving force for the vacancies to get accumulated. When the effect of normal stress decreases, then the accumulation of the vacancies sufficiently gets reduced, and correspondingly the growth of the cavities gets restricted. So all this depends on the normal stress. Now the reason I am bringing about the effect of normal stress or reintroducing the effect of normal stress here is because as your cavities begins to grow in this direction, as mentioned in blue, as your cavities begins to grow in this direction, that is by consuming the atoms of the regular grains, you are consuming the atoms of the regular grains, allowing it to pass along the grain boundaries and thereby allowing the cavities to grow in this direction. This effect of stress gets increasingly reduced, because now you are not dealing with the diffusion of atoms or diffusion of vacancies till this point, which was achieved by the normal stress, but we are dealing with the diffusion of atoms along the surface of the cavity. So when you have the cavities moving along or moving into the grains, not along the grain boundaries but moving into the grains, meaning you are taking away the atoms here and moving it along the grain boundaries. If you could consider the accumulation of vacancies, the movement of atoms is the reverse of the accumulation of vacancies. So when you have your vacancies that is mentioned in green, that is traveling to this point, and from this point it is moving in this manner in order to enable the growth of the cavity, the reverse is happening to the atoms. So the atoms are being removed from these points here, from the actual grains, and then it is being transported along the grain boundaries. So when this happens, the effect of stress gets increasingly reduced, and this is what we refer to as the load shedding. Because this effect of stress, it is responsible for moving the or creating a driving force for the accumulation of vacancies for the nuclei for the cavities to grow along the grain boundaries. However, when the growth is in this direction because of the surface diffusion, then the effect of this stress becomes reduced. Once this effect of the normal stress becomes reduced, your ultimate growth of the cavities is reduced, and that is why this is referred to as the constrained growth. Because of the reduced influence of the normal stress, which is referred to as the load shedding, due to the growth of the cavities within the grain or along the actual grains, not along the grain boundaries or along the grain boundaries, we have this reduced influence of the normal stress. Because of the reduced influence of the normal stress, you have a restricted growth in the cavities, because again it is the normal stress or that governs the mobility of the cavities or vacancies rather towards the cavities. And once the effect of this normal stress is reduced, what you ultimately have is the restricted growth, which we refer to as the constrained growth. Now, so far what we have seen is the different modes of the growth for the cavities and how the morphology of the cavities varies with the different modes, and also how, depending on the different diffusion paths that the vacancies takes, the morphology of the cavities vary. With this, I would like to wind this lecture up. In the upcoming lectures, we will see what the other ways in which the vacancies or the cavities or the precursor of the cracks are formed. So in this next lecture, we will build on, or we will see the other ways in which the cracks are formed or the precursors of these cracks are formed. So let's see ourselves in the next lecture. Goodbye.